Orange County, California is located halfway between Los Angeles and San Diego. Known throughout the world for Disneyland, surfing, and conservative politics, it also happens to be the 11th largest Jewish community in the United States. Many people are surprised when they hear this, because although close to 100,000 Jews live and thrive here, the myth that Orange County isn't a good place to be Jewish still lives on. To try and understand why, the Orange County Jewish Historical Society went back to where it all began. They sifted through hundreds of old photographs, visited archives and libraries, checked out websites and interviewed longtime Jewish residents. What they found was both illuminating and surprising. Orange County represents a unique place in American Jewish history, and to help explain it, we take you behind the orange curtain and present you with the real story of the Jews of Orange County. Jews have been a part of what is now Orange County for more than 150 years, when Bavarian immigrant Benjamin Dreyfus arrived in the new town of Anaheim in 1858. Dreyfus did very well here and was soon known as the king of the Anaheim winemakers. Marketing to both the secular and Jewish markets, he was the first large-scale producer of kosher wine in the U.S., making kosher for Passover wine in 1864 from his Anaheim vineyards. He married Leah Wheel, a Jewish woman, and they had two sons, Emil and Walter, who were both raised in Anaheim. Benjamin was also active in civic affairs. He served on the city council and was elected mayor of Anaheim 2 years in a row. And he wasn't alone. Fellow Jewish pioneers included Anaheim's first Jewish marshal, Louis Wartenberg, businessman Morris Goodman, banker Gustav Davis, and Solomon Goldstein, who owned Anaheim's first brewery and bar, named, of course, Goldstein Saloon. The first bris in Anaheim in 1877 was for Sheriff Wartenberg's son Michael and was announced in the local newspaper, the Anaheim Gazette, as were other Jewish celebrations and holidays. From 1858 to the turn of the century, the Jewish community here was actively involved in all areas of society and experienced virtually no prejudice. This was typical of the Jewish experience in the West. The Wild West in the late 1800s was religiously tolerant, much different from the life back east and in Europe, and the Jews who lived here thrived. But things were about to change. A major cultural shift occurred in the early 1900s as Midwesterners, lured by good weather and the promise of success, settled here in large numbers, bringing with them a much more closed view of society. The Jews that lived here quickly found themselves facing the very same bigotry that their parents had long ago left behind.
I remember in 1931, I was about 11, 12, Ku Klux Klan on horseback came from Anaheim. They rode all through town, white gowns on them, you know. The chief of police wore cowboy boots, remember? And I was there, and I watched him. He grabbed the head guy off and unveiled him. And he was a very prominent person. I'm not going to mention his name, but that's what happened.
There were some incidences that were not too pleasant, but we sort of override them. In fact, in the schools, like on Passover time, my children took matzahs and explained the Passover to the class, and the teacher was dumbfounded that they could do that. And we did not hide that we were Jewish. We just went along with it. But there were instances that were not too pleasant.
The same thing was happening in LA, but because the Jewish community there was larger and more established, it was better equipped to weather the cultural shift. For the Jews of Orange County, however, this was a major turning point. Many moved away, some intermarried and assimilated, and a few committed families stayed. They would travel to Los Angeles or Long Beach for important holidays and Jewish events, or if they needed kosher meat or Passover products.
When they were living here, my mother-in-law was kosher, and so there used to be a man by the name of Bernstein who had chickens in his garage for sale. Now, they used to get a live chicken, put it in a crate, and travel to Long Beach to get it killed by the sherbet, and then bring it back. And Lillian was in the car, and she just didn't like chickens because she went through that experience of taking a live chicken to Long Beach and bringing it back all quartered.
Despite their small numbers and the underlying anti-Semitism, Orange County's Jews continued to do well, living mostly in the city of Santa Ana. For important occasions, they would get together in each other's homes, but for most Jews, Orange County became the place where you made a living, but not where you actually lived.
My father-in-law, to-be, was living in Santa Ana, and his family was living in Los Angeles. He had the business here. Like I say, it started in 1915. And I met Mr. Sam Hurwitz at the temple. And I guess he sort of took a liking to me, and he said, I wonder if you would like to meet my daughter. And he gave me her phone number on a card, which I think I still have somewhere in my belongings. And I called her, and then I used to date her going into Los Angeles, and things evolved.
The Jewish population of California expanded dramatically after World War II, and Orange County was part of this trend. Jewish veterans, many of whom had been stationed here during the war, saw it as a good place to earn a living and raise a family.
At the time, there were maybe 20 families at the most, and a few during the Depression. I remember one of them moved to Australia, was a tailor, Competition was pretty keen too. But the real influx of the Jewish people came around 1940 because they had an air base here where they trained pilots in Santa Ana Air Base. And that's what brought the big influx, especially the merchants, because all these airmen were training and they needed services,
By now, the community had grown to the point where a synagogue was clearly needed, and in 1943, community leaders, including Sam Hurwitz and Alan's parents, Nathan and Rose Feinbarg, established Orange County's first synagogue, Temple Beth Shalom, in Santa Ana.
There were no temples here, and in 1943, when Alan was in the Navy, they started the only temple that we had at the time, Beth Shalom.
At the time, the services at Temple Beth Shalom at 8th and Bush were starting Friday night at 9 p.m. Now, why 9 p.m.? Because that's Friday night, the stores of downtown Santa Ana stayed open till 9 o'clock. And all the Jewish merchants, when they closed the store, they used to walk to the temple from 4th Street to 8th Street and meet their wives or their girlfriends or both at the temple. But they used to walk, and that's why the services were at 9 o'clock at Temple Beth Shalom at 8th and Bush.
In the 1950s, Orange County saw significant growth in the aerospace industry. Companies such as Ford Aeronutronic, Hughes, and Douglas Aircraft recruited engineers, many of them Jewish, from LA, the East Coast, and the Midwest. With the larger Jewish population came more synagogues, community organizations, and schools.
There were just, at that time, I think there were a few hundred Jewish families of all Orange County. We knew somebody in Placentia that was an electrical engineer. Remember Leonard Gutman?
Yeah.
And then there was somebody in San Clemente. But I think the majority were like in Santa Ana, Anaheim.
Orange County's second temple and first conservative synagogue, Temple Beth Emet, was established in Anaheim in 1956. The congregation grew quickly, and by 1963 had moved from their first building, a small house on Emily Street, to their newly built facilities on West Cerritos Avenue.
There was a man by the name of Murray Spawn who felt that the temple was not either orthodox enough for him or what. And he was one of the founders. He broke off from our temple, and he was one of the founders of Temple Beth Emet, which became a conservative temple.
Orange County's third synagogue was Reform Temple Beth David, founded in 1962 in Westminster, and Jewish Federation was established in 1965. Rabbi Chaim Asa and his wife Elaine moved here in 1966, when Chaim was hired as the rabbi for Orange County's fourth temple, Temple Beth Tikva, which opened in Fullerton in 1964.
The Sinai Desert was better than Orange County. There was Beth Shalom, there was Beth Emet, there was Federation just starting a year old. There were some anxious, good, well-meaning people wanting to work together.
By 1966, there were approximately 10,000 Jews living in Orange County. While there were a few synagogues and some scattered Jewish organizations, the community still lacked cohesiveness. That changed in 1967 with Israel's Six-Day War. Suddenly, Jews rallied around Israel and Federation, giving their time and money to help both Israel and the local community.
The 67 war gave us a shot in the arm all of a sudden. The Federation, which was really struggling and crawling in 66, all of a sudden came to the forefront, and all of a sudden we're raising 50,000, 100,000, and we
those
thought
years.
this was a miracle. I mean, my God.
That same year, Federation started the first Hillels at Cal State Fullerton and UC Irvine. Still, for many it was understood that you didn't announce your Jewishness too loudly. Anti-Semitism was a fact of life for many Orange County Jews, though some, particularly those in South County, experienced it more.
There was a lot of, what you call an undercurrent against Jews in Orange County. That's what I was told. I didn't experience it myself because I wasn't involved in business or doing any relation, but that's what people were telling me.
My husband loved it. From the get-go, he was in heaven, but I was devastated. I couldn't find any Jewish people there. We were living at the Bay Club until we decided where we were going to move. And I faced such anti-Semitism. My husband was doing extremely well at that time. And the wives, non-Jewish wives of the people that he did business with, would call me in the middle of the night and tell me to leave, that I really wasn't wanted here.
Toward the end of the 1960s, new Jewish facilities began to open in order to serve the budding communities in South County. Leisure World, now called Laguna Woods, attracted Jews from around the U.S. and opened Temple Judea in 1965, and Congregation Elot in Mission Viejo opened in 1967. The 1970s were a turning point for the Jewish community in Orange County. More Jewish families continued to move here, motivated again by the lure of good weather and business opportunities. But when they arrived, they found, as one pioneer so eloquently put it, a Jewish wasteland.
The first thing I discovered, and it didn't take very long, was that this was a Jewish desert. Found out the hard way that there were a lot of Jews that lived here, but there were a lot of closet Jews too. People who just didn't make it obvious that they were Jewish if their names didn't tell it. And I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely surprised.
The Jesus movement was very active at that time. And there were 2,500 students in Newport Harbor High, and I think there were just maybe 2 or 3 Jewish people there.
You know, we had a very, very strong nucleus of Jewish families. But as far as my children were concerned, they feel, and I agree with them, that they got a very, very basic and skimpy Jewish education.
The challenge was, how do you create Jews living in diaspora, in real galut? I mean, my children were the only Jewish children many times in their class.
These men and women, Jewish pioneers in a very real sense, gave of themselves, their time and their money in order to, as Ben Gurion so aptly put it, make the desert bloom. In doing so, they laid the foundation for the explosive growth that we're still experiencing today.
The important thing was put some money in the push all the time, so it's part of my heritage to see to it that if we're blessed to bless other people with our blessings.
And the community really, really flowered, I think, about 1970s, when all the young baby boomers finished college and were looking for a place to practice whatever their profession was. And many of them moved here.
Throughout the 1970s, the Jewish population continued to grow. Orange County's first Jewish community center, the South Coast JCC, opened in 1977 in Laguna Beach. Federation opened its first office in Tustin, and Women's Division was formed. Temple Bat Yam in Newport Beach and B'nai Tzedek in Fountain Valley were founded. Jews, once again, began to feel accepted in Orange County.
We met a few people from Newport Beach, and they told us it was a wonderful place to live.
So the very first Jewish community center in all of Orange County was the one in Laguna Beach. And the very first meeting we probably had 40 or 50 people there, if my memory serves me right. And so we grew very much in those first few years. I'd say the first 5 to 6 years, I told you we had about 400 families.
In 1979, Harriet Weeder became both the first woman and the first Jew elected to the Orange County Board of Supervisors, another symbol of the growing acceptance of the Jewish community. Chabad also established a presence here during this time, beginning in Westminster in 1979 and gradually expanding throughout Orange County.
I think the South Africans coming in were a real resurgence. And also Chabad. Chabad came in very strong in this community, I'd say going back to the late 70s.
We moved out here in 1984. I was 9 months pregnant with my son Levi, and we went straight into culture shock of Laguna Beach.
Chabad began in Orange County. Chabad started in Orange County through Long Beach. Chabad of Long Beach had a school and a center, and then moved the school, the Hebrew Academy, which is the oldest day school in Orange County, moved to Westminster some 30 years ago, I believe. And that started the first Chabad center in Orange County. Today, Chabad has almost 15 branches in Orange County, starting from that first one, and that's because as Orange County Jewry has grown, the need has grown. Chabad was always there to help and to move forward the community as it grows.
In 1980, conservative synagogue congregation B'nai Israel was formed in Tustin from the earlier Temple Sharon of Costa Mesa, and Reformed Temple Bethel began in Aliso Viejo in 1981. In 1983, with the community continuing to grow, Orange County's second JCC was established in Garden Grove, and Seymour and Nettie Vigman founded the Orange County Jewish Senior Center. By the late 1980s, the Jewish population of Orange County was well into its migration into South County, and the need for a new Jewish community center in a more centralized location became apparent. This became a reality in 1991, when Arnold Feuerstein and Alan Feinbarg donated the property on Baker Street in Costa Mesa, which became the new Jewish community campus. This facility merged the Garden Grove and South Coast JCCs into one location, and became the new home of Federation, Jewish Family Services, a preschool, and the B'nai B'rith Youth Organization.
Shelley Friedman once said to me, I'll never forget, I went into her office in the old JCC and I said, Shelley, we haven't got enough parking bays. People are complaining. She said, what a lovely problem to have. I've never forgotten that.
The last 20 years have seen phenomenal growth in Orange County's Jewish population, and as our numbers have grown, so has the strength of our community. Our first Jewish retirement residence, Heritage Point, opened in 1990, and Bubby and Zadie's Place opened in 1998. Both facilities have an on-site synagogue and provide their residents with a warm Jewish environment. The success of UCI and other businesses attracted many Jewish residents to the planned community of Irvine, and today, there are 3 synagogues along a short stretch of Michelson Avenue, better known as Shul Row.
Isn't that wonderful to think that on Rosh Hashanah, all the police were out and the traffic cops were out, directing the traffic into 3 synagogues in a space of a quarter of a mile. So I think it's time we went to the city council, we spoke to Beth Prom and asked her to change the name to Synagogue Rise.
These 3 temples are Reform, Shir HaMa'alot, Reconstructionist University Synagogue, and Beth Jacob, the Orthodox synagogue founded by South Africans who came here in large numbers in the 80s and 90s.
With people coming over here, the first people that came to South Africa, it was very difficult to try and formulate a Jewish background. There are very few conservative or reform synagogues in South Africa. It was mainly an Orthodox. Even though a lot of people might have been non-observant, it was very difficult coming over here. At the time when I came, the Orthodox synagogue which had started over here was Beth Jacob, and at that time it was in the bowling alley of Michelson.
Orange County is also home to the 8th largest Jewish day school in the U.S., Tarbut V'Torah Community Day School. Started in 1991, the name means culture and Torah and comes from the Tarbut schools that founder and Holocaust survivor Irving Gelman attended as a boy in Poland.
The school was originally, it was called Jewish Studies Institute. When Irving Gelman, the founder of Tarbut V'Torah, came, he took over that school, which was floundering at that stage, and the JCC was situated in Baker Street at that stage, in the same building as the Federation, and he took a portion of that, and that's where they started the school. There were very few classrooms.
Within a few years, the school had grown to over 100 students, and in 1997, the Tarbut V'Torah Lower School opened in a new building in Irvine.
About 7 years ago, Henry Samueli, with a few other donors, saw the need for building a high school, and he pretty much said, look, once we're doing this, let's do it properly. The Jewish Center at that stage, the Federation and the JCC were in Baker Street, and there was this piece of land which was next to where the Tarbut Lower School is at the moment, and he said he will help with the school as long as we also move the Federation and all the other Jewish organizations under one roof. Let's really build a Jewish cultural center over here. The foresight that they had was absolutely incredible.
Today, this 40-acre property is known as the Samueli Jewish Campus. It opened in 2004 and houses both Tarbut V'Torah and the Mirage Jewish Community Center. The JCC is one of the largest in the country and hosts a wide variety of community programs and events. It's also home to many Orange County Jewish organizations, including Federation, BBYO, BJE, Community Foundation, Jewish Family Service, Taglit, the Historical Society, and Camps Chaverim and Yofi.
I think that we're very, very lucky. The Jewish Community Center, Tarbut V'Torah, it's really become the center of Jewish life. I mean, you see somebody at the gym, you see them at the school, we see each other coming and going, and the Jewish community is just thriving.
I think it's absolutely unbelievable. The Bureau of Jewish Education does wonderful, after-school programs. The TVT, our day school here, which we did not have before. Thank you to Irving Gelman and to all he has done.
Here in Orange County, I think the kids are very proud to be Jews, and it's because they have the Jewish education. That's my philosophy anyway.
It was also during this time that the need to preserve our growing history became apparent, and in 1999, Polly Sloan founded the Orange County Jewish Historical Society for just that purpose.
I walked into Moses Paz's office and I saw this cardboard box sitting there, and it had a lot of stuff that I recognized as original JCC stuff from the Laguna Beach Community Center, JCC. All of a sudden I had a vision of it just being tossed. So I took the box and put it in the back of my car in the trunk, and I drove around with it for about 3 months, not knowing what to do with it. I said, maybe we could do something about an Orange County Jewish Historical Society. So I got together 8 or 9 friends. Helen Aaron was very active from the very beginning, she and Bob Aaron both. And I got so excited about it, I began doing some research, and I put together a talk, and I began giving talks all over Orange County.
Today, in 2010, Orange County is the 5th largest Jewish community in California. We have day schools, religious schools, 38 synagogues, Jewish camps, a top JCC, and Jewish organizations of every kind. We have 2 mikvahs, Jewish ritual baths, and Irvine has an A-roof, a spiritual boundary, both of which are necessary to any observant Jewish community. Through the Community Scholar Program, Orange County is host to some of the best Jewish thinkers in the world, and Chapman University in the city of Orange is nationally known for its Holocaust Education Center. We also have diversity. Jews from all over the globe make their home here. Ashkenazic, Sephardic, South African, Israeli, Canadian, French, Latin American, British, Russian, and Persian. So there you have it. California's Orange Jews from all over, with lots of places to be Jewish and do Jewish things. And even though anti-Semitism, in newer forms, still exists in our community, there's comfort and pride in knowing that Jews are, once again, widely accepted and respected in Orange County. But the true strength of the Jewish community of Orange County is that no matter where we come from or how we choose to observe, there's a unity here that is truly unique. From Benjamin Dreyfus, Orange County's first Jew, to almost 100,000 Jews today, Jewish Orange County has a very bright future indeed.
I think it's very optimistic, but I'm an optimistic person.
That's a good question. I don't think anybody knows the true answer, but I think because we have such good weather here, I think the growth of Orange County is going to continue. And the Jewish people like nice things and good weather, and people are living longer too. You're living into the 80s and 90s. In fact, I think am I 90?
I feel that we have a future. We will survive more. We're probably always looking to destroy it, but we overcome it.
It's interesting, us Jews, you can push us down wherever we go, and we jump up like daisies.
I think observances are up, tradition is up, commitment is up, affiliation is up, synagogues are growing, centers are growing.
And I think we're very lucky. We've got wonderful, wonderful Jews in Orange County, and we're very lucky.